When you shoot on location, there's a lot of outside factors and outside influences which come into bearing. The salt flats, the Bonneville salt flats here in Utah, they're this very iconic landmark that we really wanted to incorporate into this. Initially, quite a lot of the story took place there. A lot of this kind of chase through the middle portion of the film was all set on those salt flats. However, weather has a way of intervening, and we had to make some last minute changes to the setting. The salt flats is basically a catchment area for an entire mountain range, and if it rains 1 inch in those mountains, it becomes 6 inches on the salt flats. And we had some nice fall showers or late summer showers, and they're usually very arid, dry place which you can count on just being bone dry, solid, hard, compact salt. That didn't work out for us. It was flooded a few days before we went out there to film. We had a random rainstorm, and suddenly there was a foot of water on the salt flats. That takes weeks and weeks, even months to dry out.
So there was, anywhere from a foot to a couple inches of water, which we couldn't drive the van on then. And Lauren and Kurt and I went out to the West Desert where we filmed, countless other Aerostorm films, and we decided that we should probably film there. So it wasn't our first choice. Our first choice was just to spend the whole time in the white waste of the salt flats.
It's a road to nowhere, that's for sure.
The more we got thinking about it, the director got excited about shooting in this endless shallow water and trekking through this endless shallow water instead of walking across the salt.
And so we still set the climax of the movie there out on the salt flats, but it's kind of more like the very salty lake. It was kind of an awesome location, as you looked out, it was kind of this endless lake of about this deep. We hauled everyone out there still, and we played in the water for a few days, and everyone got totally caked in salt.
Prior to that, all the fighting that was going to take place on the salt flats would have had to have been done without really seeing the ground beneath them. They'd have to land on mats most of the time when being knocked around. Now those scenes were all done kind of fully live. Stunt people fully falling and flipping over and landing on their heads or shoulders.
As you walk through the water, the salt would just build up around your ankles and your pants, and if it splashed up on you, you'd get this salty residue on you, because it was pretty much just a saturated solution of salt.
The salt can destroy equipment, so like all the tripods and all the gear, and everybody's feet and ankles and legs were covered in salt, and that would dry and crystallize onto your pants or onto your hairy legs. And then all the actors and all their clothes and the stuntmen, they got completely drenched, and so the salt water would crustify on their clothes. So I know wardrobe spent days afterwards cleaning all those off, and Thane's armor got really squeaky and stiff because of the salt water.
The very next day, we had to film a scene with Adam in his leather armor. And all day at the salt flats, he had been standing in a foot of water. So his shin guards, his greaves, and his boots, they were just completely saturated with salt water, and they were totally white with the encrusted salt once they had dried out. As was the case with all of the costumes. We had to lay them out on the pavement to dry and then hose them down. And we ended up dousing everything that was leather in a big bucket of olive oil and just conditioning the crap out of it as much as we could. And then I had to use a heat gun to try and warm it up and to dry it out in time for the actual shoot the next day. But yeah, it was brutal. Salt water is not good for leather. It makes it very brittle and changes the color. So that was a bit of a nightmare to deal with. Thankfully, it worked out. We were able to get the leather clean in time and get it just dry enough to put it on Adam before his scenes in the soundstage.
But it sure makes a cool visual to see people running and fighting in water. The stuntmen, when they had to go face first into the water, it's basically salt in your eyes. So they really took one for the team there doing their stunts in the water.
In the end, I think we embraced the water and didn't change our schedule and didn't wait any longer and say, let's push this off a couple of weeks until some more evaporation takes place and just went and shot it in the water. And I think the result is fun. I think it's a look that you don't have anywhere else.